Welcome. In this video, we will discuss file migration. We will show how to use the OpenPages installation server in order to do the following: backup files and folders, and restore files and folders. We begin by logging into our installation server. We enter our username and a password, accept the terms and conditions, and then click on Login. Here, I'll select a previously existing deployment where OpenPages has already been installed via the installation server. Now that we've arrived on the deployment page, let's have a look at the available tasks. We see current deployment, file backup, and uninstall. In order to begin the file backup, we'll go ahead and we'll click on File Backup. This will load up the file backup task, and here we'll start to see things are a little bit different than what we saw on the current deployment page. You're only going to see 3 cards on the left, mainly an application server, reporting server, and search server, regardless of how many of each of these servers that you have. And the reason for this being is that even if you have multiple application servers, we expect all of them to be synced up as they're serving the same exact files. Same thing for reporting server. So while you have these 3 by default, you don't necessarily need to back up all of them. There's one that you specifically do not want to back up. You can simply just remove the card and then click on Save. In the very top left, you're going to see there's nothing in the drop down to select. That's because you have all of them here. If you were to then remove one of these, then you would see that particular one show up here as an option to re-add it. So that's the card navigation section on the left. So with that being said, let's kind of go through some of these properties, taking a look first at the application server. So the application server has a nickname, which again is the name that will appear on the card. So if I were to change this from application server 1 to application backup, you'll see that it updates the card right away. The source host name, this is the actual machine that you're going to be backing up the files from. Operating system is the operating system of the source machine. Remote deploy, if it happens to be a different machine than the installation server that's serving up this web application, then you'll have remote deploy set to true here, which is, in this case, it's toggled on. Otherwise, if it's the same as the installation server, you can toggle it off. And since it is a remote deploy, we need to specify what port do we want the agent to be running on, the SSH port, as well as username and password for the agent to be started up on that source machine. Other than that, a few things that you'll need to provide when you're doing a backup for the application card is what's the home directory. So you specify what it is on the source machine, the node name on that source machine as well. And if there's any sort of question as to what these things do, there's typically a tooltip that you can just hover over and it'll provide you some information there. Then followed after that, we have 5 different toggles for this application card that are some of the common things that you may want to perform a backup on. Solution SOSA files, service SOSA files, jar, services, images. Some of these are files in the example of OpenPages ext.jar. Otherwise, you might have directories, for example, SOSA services. If you hover over this tooltip, you'll see the exact directory on the source machine that you'll be backing it up from. And you can just hover over each one and you'll see exactly where those reside. So as we toggle some of these on, let's try services SOSA files and SOSA services. As we do that, you'll see this file selected for backup will actually update dynamically as you turn those toggles on or off. This text area is simply read-only, but it just provides you a quick idea of the different things that will be backed up as you toggle these things on. Now, if, for example, there's a particular file that's custom, that's not here, and you want to be able to back that up as well, we also provide you this extra text area down here. It's called additional OP home directory files to back up. The information that you'll provide here are paths that are relative to the OP home directory, mainly the OP home directory input that you provided above. So we see down here that it's /openpagesregistry.xml, but it's a relative path compared to this home OP user OP/OpenPages directory. So if there's multiple directories that you'd like to do, you basically simply just use comma delimited, something like that would work. So for the time being, I'll just leave it as is. And now let's take a look at the next card, which is the report server. So very similar to the previous card, we're going to see host name, operating system, remote deploy, as well as some of the information you need for that particular agent. And then the things that are specific to reports are the Cognos home directory, as well as Command Center home directory. And right after that as well, you'll see 3 toggles for things that might be commonly backed up. For example, Cognos branding, as well as reports deployment and model query subjects. Once again, if you select these toggles on or off, you'll see this text area update accordingly, just to give you a better idea as to what is being backed up there. And again, if there's additional custom files on this reporting server that you'd like to back up, you can do so in this text area down here. And this is additional Command Center home directory file to back up. So it's a relative path based on this Command Center home directory that you've provided previously. And one other thing to call out here that was also true on the application card is this overwrite files during restore. So this toggle is actually responsible for letting the server know during the restore if there was a file that was previously existing and you're trying to restore on top of it, will it overwrite it, yes or no? So that's what this toggle is for. And while you're actually doing the backup, you'll need to specify it prior to doing the restore later on. So just be aware of that. So that is a little bit different. And then let's take a look at the search server to see those as well. So the search server, very similar, has a host name, agent properties, and then specific to the search card is a search home directory. And that's where the search server resides. And then you have some common directories that you may want to back up. Global search index, global search properties. If you hover over the tooltip, you see exactly where those reside. As you enable these toggles, you'll see the paths update as well. And if there are any custom files, you can once again just provide relative paths to the value that you provide in the search home directory above. And if there's multiple values, you can simply just use comma delimited. So with that, let's go ahead and click on the backup, which will kick off the operation. Click on backup. What we'll see here is it's letting us know what is actually currently being done. So we saw save in progress, now it's file backup in progress. And while this is going on, we're also going to see some progress bars on each of the different cards. So we have 0% thus far. And the progress bars are calculated based on the overall number of things that it's trying to back up. So we'll see the application server here just went from 0 to 100% because there was one thing that it was backing up. And then once it's done, we'll be presented with a success dialog, assuming that everything was successful. If there was an error, we can go through and take a look at that log as well. And I'll refer you to the errors and logs video that we previously published as well that you can take a look at as to how that works. So go ahead and click on OK. That'll dismiss it. And now let's take a look at where these things were actually backed up. So I'll go ahead and open up my installation server. So under the deployment, where I just did the backup, you'll see this migration directory. If you go into the migration directory, you'll actually see a backup zip for each of the different cards that I just backed up. And what you'll notice is there's one for the app, one for reporting, one for search, and it also has the timestamp as to when it was actually backed up. So now let's move over to File Restore. So in order to do a file restore, you'll want to click on Current Deployment. And now once you've switched over to that current deployment task and a backup has been created on the server, you'll now see that the restore button has been enabled. This restore button is only enabled if a backup has been created. So in order to kick off the restore, we'll go ahead and we'll click on Restore. Once again, we'll see the spinner text update in order to let us know that the restore is in progress. So that's useful in case you ever want to switch to a different deployment and come back. You'll know exactly what operation is in progress. And once again, while this is going on, you're going to see some progress bars next to each of the different cards, and you can follow along there as well based on the progress bars. While the restore operation is in progress, one of the things that it's also doing in addition to doing the restore is it actually creates backup on the deployment machine, overwriting those files so that you always have a copy of what the files were prior to restoring them. In the interest of time, I'll fast forward the restore operation so we don't have to wait for it real time. As part of the restore operation as well, it will stop the server, copy the files, and then restart the server afterwards as well. So, for example, in the case of the reporting server, that requires stopping and restarting of Cognos as well. So that may take a little bit of time as well. So it's not just the amount of time it takes to overwrite that particular file that was there previously. So just be aware of that as well. And if, for example, there were multiple application servers or multiple reporting servers, when you go to do the restore, it'll restore those files on each of the different application servers. Same for the reporting servers. And once it completes successfully, you'll see a success dialog. If there were any errors, you can deal with that as well. So for that, we'll point you to the errors and logs video as well, which shows a few examples of things failing during the restore or backup operation there. So I'll go ahead and click on OK to dismiss the dialog. And you can also view the log at the very top as well for more information as well. Okay, so if we were now to look at the system that we just restored the files to, we'll see that it'll now have a new timestamp. So let's first go to that particular machine. So we see here that also on the installation server, under the migration, we have those zips like we saw previously. And this is actually on the agent, which happens to be, in this case, the same as the installation server. So now let's go. Okay, so now I'm going to my OpenPages installation directory, and the file that I just restored was openpagesregistry.xml. And we'll see here that today's date is 3/19, but it still has 3/15, and that's because we had selected to not overwrite the particular file, so it still has the previous timestamp there. Otherwise, if it was enabled, you would see the current timestamp there. Finally, in each of the directories where we're performing a backup or a restore, you're going to see a -backup-restore directory. This directory will house all of the backup and restore zips on the servers that are having those actions performed on them. So in this case, we're in OpenPages, so you'll see OpenPage-backup-restore. If I were to go into my OP search, which is where the search server resides, then you'd also see a corresponding search_backup_restore directory. And finally, if I were to navigate up to the command center directory, you'll see also that there's a OpenPages CC backup restore directory that again houses the backup and restore zips. So this concludes this video. In this video, we have shown how to perform a file backup as well as a restore in your OpenPages deployment. We hope you found this video helpful, and we invite you to follow along with some of our other videos.